Hey guys, Solomon here. Hope you're having a great day. I thought in this video I could show you guys some easy e4 chess openings against some of Black's most popular responses, right? I mean, I've been playing the move e4 since I was a kid, and I'm a big fan of it, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of different things that Black can do, right? There's moves here like e6, right, with the French defense, e5, the Pirc, Scandinavian, Caro-Kann, Sicilian, Owen's defense, Alekhine's defense. Not everyone has time, right, to study each one of these moves in depth for hours upon hours. What are some simple but effective ways that we can play against each of them? Well, in this video, I'm going to be walking through all of these moves from Black one by one and showing you my favorite response against each. That is an easy opening. Right now, of course, these aren't the only easy ways to play against all these moves, and there are more complicated ways to go against them. But if you just want to put the theory aside for a second, right, and you just want to play some chess and get some upside, get some, middle game positions to work with, right, the possibility to get some quick and easy wins, I hope you guys enjoy some of these options that I am about to show. Okay, I've been playing all these really in the last few years, and I enjoy them a ton. So first off, what about this move of e6 with the French defense? Okay, well, an easy way to play against this is actually just with the exchange variation. And first off, you could play a move like knight f3, bishop t3, castling kingside. There's nothing wrong with this, but I must warn you, a very high draw right here, okay, especially when Black copies white. Black can very easily copy white. I've played this before, and I've had Black copy me up to move 15 and beyond, and let me tell you, it's a little bit annoying, okay, at least for me. So, I mean, it's kind of weird because you always have that feeling like, well, I am a move ahead, so I'm technically better here, but it's at the same time, it's like, gosh, why don't we just call it a draw, right? So if you don't want to, get a very drawish position here, I would say making a balance, mix things up here with the Monte Carlo variation, C4. Josh Waitzkin, a lot of you may have heard of him from the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer. This move C4 was a move that he was a fan of, and he did quite well with it, right? Even against, top tier competition. I'm about to show you a game that he played against a 2400 level player, or at least a section of it, and he got a solid game against the French, right? So we play this move c4. Really here, guys, we're just developing, playing knight c3, bishop d3. These are really the two moves that you're going to want to play very quickly. Whenever Black wants to take on c4, we'll take back. And, a lot of players go with knight f3. I'm personally not the biggest fan of it. Just because I feel like after bishop g4, my knight's a little bit uncomfortable, and we have an isolated pawn on d4, and that's just my taste of things. I like this move of knight e2 a little bit more. Bishop g4, you can play it whenever you want. I mean, I don't really care. In fact, I could just play f3 and kick your bishop out. On top of that, rook e8 kind of loses its sting, right? So we're really just making this pawn on d4 a solid pawn, and there's not much Black can do to try to win it at this point. Here if Black develops, we have castling kingside, bishop b3, Waitzkin here, continue with bishop g5. Notice here how easy it is for white to develop, right? We play knight c3, bishop d3, we tuck the knight in e2, and then from that point, we're off to the races, right? Castle kingside, get your dark squared bishop involved. Here in the game, he plays rook e1, just putting his rook on the open file. Here, his 2400 level rated opponent played the knight to d5, but we have knight f4, an exchange, queen d3, and here white with a pretty sizable advantage, and Waitzkin went on to win a very, very nice game there. Okay, so that covers the French defense with the move of e6. Okay, you can go with the exchange variation or even the Monte Carlo variation, creating an imbalance, but very simple to work with, right? What about the move of e5? I personally am a fan of the Italian game, just getting that bishop out to c4. Now playing d3, and we're just going to continue developing. At this point, you can castle kingside. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Although I did want to share a little idea that I have played at times, and that's this move of bishop e3. Okay, now first off, if Black takes on e3, we'll just capture back, right? And oftentimes here, you can castle kingside. You're going to have a rook automatically active. On the f-file, you can tuck a queen on e2. And we have double pawns, but at the same time, we have 3 pawns on the central files. Black only has 2, right, which is usually what they have at the most. So, if Black ever does pull off a move like d5, which is going to take a little bit of work because we do have a really good clamp down on it, even if they do break through at some point, guess what? We still have 2 pawns on the d and e files. So that's something to think about. Going back, bishop e3, I would say most of the time in my games, Black doesn't take the bishop. They usually drop their bishop back. And then at this point, I'm a fan of playing queen d2. And look, if Black sees this knight here that's awkward, I play h3. right? I even allow black to mess up my pawn structure, and sometimes black will castle kingside, in which case we can now castle queenside. And yeah, I mean, it's just a really fun game here. You know, we can put a rook on g1, eyeing that king. We have a battery ram here, eyeing h6, a bishop eyeing the king. And by the way, going back, I mean, h3, if the bishop wants to go to h5, we can just play g4, gaining a ton of space and, you know, really playing some fun attacking chess. And yeah, that covers, you know, the move e4 against e5 with the Italian game. Very simple. I must warn you, if you do play the move of knight f3 on move 2, you could see some strange stuff like the elephant gambit or the, you know, I mean, f5 with the Latvian gambit. You could see the Petrov's defense. All that being said, you do got to study for some things, but most of the time you're going to see knight c6. You go into the Italian, you're chilling, right? Going back to e4, what about the Pirc defense, right? This is something that I see come up a little bit, you know, players trying to figure out what to do against this move. And there's a lot of options. There's the Austrian, there's the 150 attack, and more. Although I would say if you're trying to find something simple, easy, and effective, I would probably just play the classical, right? Get 2 pawns in the center. Very simple, guys. Put 2 pawns in the center, develop both your knights, and then simply play bishop e2, castle kingside, right? Very simple. And I would say one thing to keep in mind, if you ever see a move like c6, black is wanting to play b5, okay? They want to play b5 and b4, kick your knight off and win this pawn on e4, or at least start to gain queenside momentum. If you see this, slow it down, okay? You got to play this move a4, slow down b5. You're fine here. I mean, now you could just play something like bishop e3, get your queen out, get your rooks active. We're in business, right? Going back to the move e4, what about d5 with the Scandinavian defense? Well, in this case, I recommend taking on d5. Queen takes d5 is the main line, but first off, I did want to mention this move of knight f6, okay? Now, you know, the main line here is d4, and I did want to mention, you know, we're about to look at this move of c4, and if you are uncomfortable playing c4, that's totally okay, right? You can just play a move like knight f3, okay? Play a move like knight f3, develop your bishop, castle kingside, you're fine, right? You're totally fine there. You know, plug it in. The computer's going to give you an advantage for white, which is usually how it goes because white gets the first move. If you do want to go with the main line, though, and try to gain some space with c4, this can be good because we have 2 pawns here in the center, you know, center and semi-center that are, you know, attacking half, really wiping out half of the 5th rank. Definitely a good thing. Although here I would say that you got to play knight f3, okay? You do got to memorize up to this point, you know, playing d4, giving the pawn back, right? By the way, we could try to hold on to that pawn there, you know, when black plays knight f6, but it actually becomes problematic if we keep trying to hold on to that pawn. So just give the pawn back, right? Play d4, give it back, play c4, and then here you got to play knight f3, okay? Move 5, remember that, knight f3. And really what this does is it doesn't just defend d4, but it really protects e5. Because here's the thing, if you play knight c3, which, by the way, I did in a tournament back in my youth days, and my opponent here played the move of e5, and my heart sunk a little bit because I had seen this before. I was a Scandinavian defense player for a long time. Guys, e5 is hard to deal with. Very difficult. It looks a little weird because it seems like black is just giving up a pawn, but it turns out if we take the pawn, white has a worse position. Okay, first off, if we play something like d5, c5 is really weak. Okay, so I just wanted to mention that. If we do take this pawn, which, you know, I mean, before that, black was putting a ton of pressure on d4, black is going to take our queen, and sure, I mean, we're up a pawn, but black now is attacking that pawn, trying to win it right back. If we defend it, black plays a move like bishop e6, and, I mean, here's the deal. They're down a pawn, but, I mean, you know, they're double attacking c4. They got 3 pieces developed. Look at our pieces, guys. None of ours are even off the 1st rank. Okay, very uncomfortable position to play here. From a practical standpoint, I do not recommend it. Black here with moves like castling queenside ideas on the way, getting their rook active as well. Okay, this is a nightmare for white to have to navigate, especially with the dark squared bishop coming to c5 or b4, or at some point, maybe even both, right? Clamping down against that king or against these f2, e3, d4 squares, okay? So all that being said, if you do play knight f6 and you play d4, play c4, and then you got to play the move of knight f3, right? Very simple there, and it really just does lock down that move of e5, and from that point, okay, we'll develop, and we're completely fine. Going back to the move of d5, in which case we capture again. Queen takes is the main line there. I would say here, just attack the queen and continue with taking control of the center, right? d4, bring the bishop to c4. This is my favorite square for the bishop. And then again, I like knight e2, okay? You guys are going to see this is a constant theme in my opening preferences, right? Knight e2. And by the way, a lot of players don't like knight e2. I just like it because, again, knight e2. Now if we see something like bishop g4, we're not worried about any pin, right? Because we're just going to kick that bishop away, right? In fact, we've seen this over 13,000 times in online chess, right? Black going back here to h5 after bishop g4, that move. And, okay, I mean, you know, at this point, I actually think white has a very clear advantage. g4 is a good move. The computer actually likes h4 with the threat of now playing g4. Very sneaky option here, almost kind of, you know, that tall variation kind of idea. Against the Caro-Kann. We're playing h4, and we're now threatening g4 because, okay, if the bishop drops, we play h5, that bishop is trapped. We're winning a piece, right? Whether that's the knight or the bishop for a pawn. If black sees this, they may play h6. Okay, we play g4. Now h5, it doesn't really have a point. I mean, the bishop just drops, and if anything, our g5 potential pawn break gets a little bit weakened now. So I would say play the move knight f4. I mean, just attack that minor piece. And, okay, if black wants to run away with the bishop, we play queen e2. I mean, this is just a great position for white to work with. We got moves like bishop d2 and castling queenside on the way. And, yeah, Stockfish gives us a nearly +2 advantage for white. Okay, so going back to e4, I would say take on d5. If you see knight f6, give the pawn back, right? And from that point, you can develop or play c4 and then an immediate knight f3. And if the queen captures back, play knight c3. Get your bishop to c4, develop, you're chilling. Right. Next up, we got c6 with the Caro-Kann defense. Okay. Now here, d4, you know, the exchange is pretty simple. You could even go into the pan-off with c4, which is very good. I mean, a lot of top GMs go with that. I do got to warn you, though, sometimes the pan-off can get pretty complicated. So that's why I'm not including this on this video, right? Because this is all about easy chess openings that you can play. If you want to play a simple option, that's very good. Just play bishop g3 here, right? Bishop d3, c3, okay, bishop f4. We're getting both of our bishops active. It's kind of weird. Usually in openings, you want to get your knights out first, or at least one knight out. But in this case, both of our bishops are very well placed on d3 and f4. Okay, I mean, if black wants to play aggressively, that's fine. We're totally cool with activating our queen. And, yeah, developing both of our knights. Simple position here. You can take whenever you want. We have a replacement, right? We're looking at squares like e5. Our queen's active. Our king here is a move away from castling and getting safe. And we're just playing chess, right? Which is exactly what we want when we're playing simple opening systems. Going back to e4, what about the move of c5 with the Sicilian? Okay, the Sicilian is it really is its own world. It really is. I mean, I play the Sicilian Knight Orf. Gosh, I don't know how many years back in my tournament days, but I played the Sicilian Knight Orf, and gosh, it's complicated. I mean, I watched Gary Kasparov's courses on it. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, hundreds of hours, tons of memorizing, and yeah, it gets very complicated. What if you want to avoid this as white? What if you don't want, what if you don't want to play into someone's variation that they've studied for weeks and weeks, maybe years? Okay, play this move b3. You're in a whole different world, whole different ballgame. Okay, b3 with the Snyder variation. I can promise you, Sicilian players are not prepared for this. I mean, guys, I studied the Sicilian for hundreds, if not thousands of hours back in my youth days. I never studied for this move, ever. Okay, because no one plays it. Well, I shouldn't say no one plays it, but most don't. But it is very good. Okay, in fact, at the GM level, it's been played and it's done very well. Here's the idea. We're looking to fianchetto our bishop very quickly. Okay. And this is good partly because of the fact that g6 is a little bit discouraged at first glance, right? In fact, if they don't play it now, it's going to be hard for them to pull this off, in the next couple moves, okay? So, if you're going up against a dragon player or something, this is a great option. Here, if we have knight c6 or something, bishop e2, I'm a big fan of taking up space with f4. You don't have to do this. You can totally play knight f3, pin this knight, look at d4 breaks. That's totally fine, right? But I am a big fan of f4. Just wiping out, again, half of that fifth rank. If you see something like knight f6, we just develop, and really what we're trying to do here, guys, in this system, we do usually bring our bishop to b5 if a6 is not played and try to win this knight, right? If a6 is played, then we got to figure out where to put that bishop, and there are some options there that are good. But okay, I mean, here, if bishop d7, we actually do have this knight d5 option available, which is kind of fun, right? Two minor pieces attacking this knight, and obviously, if the knight moves, we're attacking the rook on top of that. So that's a fun idea. And if black here just doesn't care, okay, we take double up black's pawn structure, queen e2, knight f3. We're playing against the Sicilian. We've reached move 9, and we're alive. we're taking this as a win, right? And really at the end of the day, you know, if you play something like the Snyder, you might get a position like this, which in all honesty, it's not like it's crushing for white or something, right? I put it at about even, but you're going to be more comfortable than your opponent, which, you know, so much of chess, guys, especially in the opening, comes down to who is more comfortable, right? It's not about who's better, who's up 0.2 or minus 0.2. It really doesn't matter, guys, at that point. It matters who is comfortable and who has seen this position before and has a plan moving forward, right? So that's an option that you can use against the Sicilian defense, right? What about the move of b6 with the Owen's defense? Now, this is a more rare option, but e4 players do fall into a ton of trouble against the Owens, okay? And, you know, I've played the Owens myself, and the way to kind of stop the Owens or prevent its power is pretty simple, okay? So, you know, I actually do recommend that you memorize these moves. It's only 8 moves, but I do recommend that you memorize these. It's going to save you a lot of trouble. Trust me. We're starting out with d4. Okay, but here we're playing bishop d3, not, I repeat, not the move of knight c3. Okay, I guess you could play knight c3 and then play a3, which is very rare. I hardly ever see it when I play the Owens. And again, I've played it a lot. But here's the idea. If we do play knight c3, black wants to play e6 and bishop b4, pinning our knight to the king, attacking the pawn on e4. And then from that point, they have a bunch of lines where they can continue attacking that pawn, and just, you know, throwing in firepower against our center. Okay, so all that being said, when we do see that move of bishop b7, we don't want to play knight c3. We don't want our knight to get pinned. We're instead going to play bishop d3. See something like e6, knight f3, knight f6, queen e2. Play solid chess here, right? If black wants to now put a bunch of pressure on this pawn, guess what? Our knight's not pinned. It just doesn't do the same thing. It just doesn't. Right, we can play the move e5, kick that knight back, castle kingside. If you want to play something like c5, c4 is actually a pretty good move here. That does very well online. You can plug it in and see, you know, how you do with it, how you like the lines, and yeah, but it does get a little bit complicated. If you want to play simple here, c3, you know, nice long pawn chain here facing the kingside. We got 2 bishops doing the same thing as well. Not to mention our queen, and yeah, I mean, white here with a playable game. Oftentimes in this kind of pawn structure, all right, black wants to play queen b6 in the French, but guess what? There's a pawn on b6 because they played at move 1. They can't keep putting more pressure on this pawn unless they play knight c6. But again, we have two defenders, so we're not really worried about it. Okay. I do want to mention, if you see something like knight c6, a move like a3 could be good, just so black can't take, and then play knight b4 and try to win your light squared bishop, right? This bishop is extremely strong, right? All these pawns are on the opposite color of this bishop, so it has a wider range. So we really want to do everything that we can to protect it. Okay. Yeah, so going back to that move of e4, let's go over our final move in this video, and that is this idea of knight f6 with the Alekhine's defense. Okay, now, just to start off, the main line here is e5, and there's nothing wrong with this move. If you want to study e5, go for it. Okay, I'm dead serious. However, it is a little bit problematic, and it is a little bit hard for white to play. Okay, I remember back, probably not my youth days, but yeah, a decent time back, I played e5 in a tournament game against a lower rated player, and I barely survived, guys. I mean, it's hard because they're so used to the theory and they know what they're doing. What is black trying to do? Well, what they're trying to do is lure your pawns out, right? You kick the knight, you push your pawn. Maybe you push a 4th one, right? This is the 4 pawns attack. It looks very aggressive. But oddly enough, black is the one that honestly feels like they're on the offensive. I'm personally not a fan of the 4 pawns attack for white. If you are, that's cool. I don't vibe with it, you know. And if white does play correctly here, if you memorize the lines, you're going to be okay, but you are walking on a thin line, right? You know, if we play knight f3, knight c6, you know, let's just say at this point, okay, let's say we keep pushing. Guys, we're pushing so hard that we're the ones that are exposed, right? They're starting to become cracks in the wall. Black can play knight b4, capture off, and yeah, play e6 there. Whole idea being if we take queen h4 check, and we got the good old d8, h4, e4 idea, and we're simply losing our rook. Right, so that's not good. So going back to the move knight f6, I recommend just playing knight c3. Just play knight c3, right? If you see the move e5, we develop both of our knights, and we're just playing an e4, e5 game. Okay. By the way, if you do see e5, we're also in the Vienna game. So at that point, you could play the Vienna Gambit. You could play g3, going into a fianchetto kind of line with the Vienna. And okay, if black plays here with the Scandinavian variation, giving you a little bit of a different look, just take and develop, right? If they take with the B pawn so that our queens don't get traded off and our king is unable to castle, right? We don't want our king on D1. We want to castle our king. So at this point, okay, take the center, play a move like bishop D3, castle, and you're in business, okay? Hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comment section below what opening you liked. And also keep in mind that down in the description below, I'll let you guys know that most of these openings I've covered on the channel, so I'll leave a link to each one down below if you want to look at these openings in more depth. Let me know which ones you guys like the most, and also let me know what openings that you like as E4 that are simple and easy to play. Okay, there's a lot of players here that are probably trying to figure out simple and easy options, and obviously there's a lot more than the ones I mentioned, so pin them down. And, you know, I think it will be helpful for the whole community. All that being said, thank you guys a ton, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey guys, wanted to give a big shout out to my Patreon supporters for the month of February in 2023. Appreciate you guys a ton. And if you haven't checked out the Patreon before, make sure to go check it out. There's a lot of Patreon exclusive benefits that you can gain, and I'd love to have you join the crew.